Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today we're going to be painting Dark Angels. Nice and simple, super effective, lovely looking models. So let's get right into it. So I've started again with Zenithal Prime and I'm going to be painting my undershadows in Leviathan Purple, or Leviathan Purple, however you feel like saying it. Just building them up nicely so we get a good rich purple tone in those dark shadows that will come through in the green later. Then we're hitting those highlights with some zinc yellow. See what I'm doing here is I'm actually stuffing a little bit of sponge into the neck hole where I've also sprayed that purple. I want to keep it dark so it's nice contrast against the bright coloured head. And then finally, just on those highest of high points, I'm hitting it with some titanium white ink. And all that's going to do is when I do apply the green, it's going to make some nice highlights up at the top of the model where we want all of the focus. And now Caliban green mixed with contrast medium. It's about 2 parts contrast medium to 1 part Caliban green, and I'm building this up slowly over the model so I get a nice green colour. But what I want to do is in the highlights I want to be just getting green, only just getting green. And then the same mixture I'm using on the helmet, and I haven't given this the undershadows because I want a slightly brighter feel to the helmet. Then when it's all done, all dry, give it a very light dry brushing with Warpstone Glow just to catch some of those top highlight edges. And that really finishes off the armour. You can see doing to all the helmets there as well. And that means the helmet's just a little bit brighter than the armour, so the focus is on the model's face. Then titanium white ink, just going to pick out some details that we're going to be contrast painting later. So that's the little buttons on his arm and the lenses in his eyes. Just being very careful not to touch any of the armour. And then into those eyes with Ball Red contrast paint, sits in there nice and easy. And I'm just moving it around, make sure I get into all the corners without getting it onto the actual helmet itself. There we go, so always moving around. And then Black Legion contrast paint I'm going to be using to get into the under armour. I like the contrast paint just because it flows kind of nicely into those little recesses. Just being careful not to get onto the armour that we've spent so long doing. And I'm also getting all the leather parts because I want to keep the colour scheme fairly simple on here. Now Retributor armour, good rich gold colour onto the Aquila on the chest, and all the little gold details. Got a little bullet casing hanging off his shield, off his power pack, sorry. And then a couple of other little details. And then dark aluminium flows really nicely into all the recesses on all these metal parts, the hoses on the back of his legs, and his entire weapon was painted in dark aluminium before coming in with the Mephiston red. And that dark aluminium gives the Mephiston red a slightly metallic feel, but also helps brighten the colour instead of painting it directly on top of any darker greens or blacks and things like that. Then back with the Retributor armour, and I'm just picking out some of those details that I couldn't do before because I had other base coats to put in. So here it is, the big Aquila on the weapon, making sure to pick out all the details like the little rounds and bullets and bits and pieces. And then a Shabti bone for the purity seals, and then Reichland flesh shade going to everything that's painted in Retributor armour. Just making sure I get a nice build up in the recesses. It's fairly watered down so it's not too thick and shiny. And then watered down Nuln Oil all over the weapon, all over the metal parts, just giving some depth to those recesses on the metal areas. There we go with the hoses on the back of the legs. And all the other little bits and pieces. And then Frostheart Blue, fairly watered down onto the buttons on his wrists. Dark blue in the back and light blue on the buttons. And then I'm using black panel liner. I haven't varnished this model because I do want a certain amount of bleed for that feel, for that dirty feel. And I'm just getting all the recesses on all the armour and all just these little pinprick touches to make sure it flows nicely around the model. And then quite watered down Doom Bull brown just to fill the entire base. Doesn't matter if I'm a little sloppy around the feet because when I come back to dry brush this, it'll just help the model's feet merge into the ground, making it look like it's really in place. Scrag brown, gentle dry brushing all over the top of the brown. Again, doesn't matter if I touch the edges of the boots here because it just gives it that dusty feel and makes him feel like he's part of the base. Touch of Liberator gold, and I'm just picking back out some of the highlights on the gold areas with a particular focus on the Aquila on his chest because it helps draw a little bit of interest. And then a Shabti bone for these tiny little details in the middle of the purity seals. You can see here on a couple of different models. And then with the Zamizi Desert, just that final highlight on the base, just to give it that little bit of depth. Working on the outside, not going underneath the model too much because I want to make it look like a shadow. Then I edge it in black, and that, my friends, is the model finished. And there he is in all of his glory, looking absolutely fantastic. Drop a like, drop a subscribe, smash the shit out of those buttons, and we'll see you in the next one.